I said at the start of my last upload that the Overwatch League Off-Season had somewhat died down a little bit since the start of free agency, in the way of roster moves and rumours. This week, however, things have certainly begun to ramp up once again, with some remarkable signings taking place, while speculation has continued to gather momentum around a number of potential changes. Today I'm hoping to bring you everything that I've heard, starting with the official announcements at the beginning of this video, before discussing some of the rumours and speculation that's swirling around a little later on. Of course, the obvious place to start is with the incredible signing of Mano to the Philadelphia Fusion from the York Excelsior. I said on Monday that I was very surprised to hear the rumour that Mano was being traded, considering that he's been one of the Excelsior's most consistent and reliable performers over the past 3 years. In terms of landing spots, I speculated that teams like the Charge or Gladiators could make really good fits, but the fact that he's now ended up on Philly's roster has certainly raised a few eyebrows. If you had any doubts about the Fusion's ambition for a title, or the money they would be willing to spend on reaching that goal, this acquisition should have raised those doubts entirely, with arguably one of the top 5 main tanks in the league now bolstering a squad that was almost unchallenged in North America last season. At a first glance, I don't think there can be any complaints about such a pickup, and on paper it looks like Philadelphia have made a ground-shaking move here. On closer analysis though, Mano joining the Fusion does raise some interesting and valid questions. Most prominently, what is now going to happen with Sado? After coming under scrutiny last off-season for sticking with Sado in 2020, he rewarded this faith from the Fusion with an amazing past season, where he ended up being one of Philly's most improved and impactful players. After such an amazing turnaround, it feels weird that they now might be thinking of moving on from him. Now obviously there's every chance that the Fusion keeps Sado alongside Mano to deploy the pair to their strengths depending upon the meta, and we've seen that teams like the Shock and Dynasty were able to extrapolate a tremendous amount of value and success from this approach. You do have to wonder though, is Sado now potentially on the market? You would imagine he feels that he's earned that starting spot after silencing his naysayers in 2020, and there are a bunch of teams who would be snapping at the bit to sign him for next year if he did indeed become available. So just from this perspective, the Mano trade is quite a curious one. Another aspect I want to mention though is how Mano will fit into this team stylistically. Whilst I personally think that Mano has been one of the Overwatch League's best main tanks over the past 3 years, I would say that he seems far more comfortable when playing slightly more passive and reactionary. We saw throughout this year, as New York tried to play a bit more proactively and aggressively than they had in the past, there was a slight problem in synergy between the tank line and support line, with one or the other sometimes finding themselves out of position when trying to execute teamfights. Looking at how Philly played in 2020, I would also say they tried a similar approach, with their rush comp in particular seeing the team play quite fast. Now I'm not saying that Mano can't adapt to this style, it's perfectly possible that the Excelsior just didn't have the right game plan, but if the Fusion do look to play in a similar manner, I will be fascinated to see how Mano responds if he's at the helm. And that's why, although I really like this aggressive move from Philadelphia, I am trying to be a bit careful not to get too overexcited before we've actually seen how he fits in. In terms of what this means for New York though, it does appear that the Excelsior are looking at a major clean-out ahead of 2021, whilst as I discussed last time, it appears players like Yakpung could be on the way in. With some speculation going around regarding their other long-time players, I'm really intrigued to see whether this is a financial exercise, or if in fact New York are making some major cultural changes through the roster they build for next year. Related to this, the Excelsior have also announced the departure of Mandu, a move that only leads to more questions than answers. Due to being underage for most of this season, we never really got to see what Mandu could do for New York in 2020, with the team most of the time opting for the tried and tested backline of Jonak and Animo. Many of us were hoping to see if his more aggressive main support play could help the Excelsior with their attempt to play more proactively themselves, with Animo himself being a much more passive player at this position. But in the end though, this never came to fruition. Ultimately, I was still very surprised to see New York move off from Mandu so early, with many watchers of his contenders play saying that he has a lot of potential. I'd really like to know if again this was financially motivated, or whether there was another reason for his release. Regardless though, Mandu's departure alongside Mano further highlights that the Excelsior are making a lot of definitive changes this off-season, and whilst many of them so far haven't been best received by their fans, I'm interested to see who they look to release, re-sign, or pick up over the coming months. Moving on down to the Boston Uprising, today they announced they are parting ways with Jerry. After clearly being one of Boston's best players throughout the 2020 campaign, I must say that I'm a little surprised to see Jerry be released by the Uprising, especially after it appeared that his 2021 option had been exercised by the team ahead of free agency. It wouldn't have shocked me so much if Jerry had left in a trade, as we all know Boston love to make a bit of cash on their developed players, but it appears in this case that Jerry will just be becoming a free agent. He showed some pop-off moments on Hitscan this year, with his Ash in particular impressing, and I have no doubt there will be another team in the league that is interested in picking him up. I do think, however, that it is a shame that he hasn't remained a part of the Uprising's 2021 project, as behind coach Levi, it does seem like there's a sense of optimism coming out from the Boston camp, with Myongbong already surprisingly announcing that he's returning to the team next season. What this does mean though is that the Uprising are in desperate need of a major DPS pickup, as without a quality star at this position, I don't see any way they significantly improve in 2021, so I am looking forward to see if they take their typical scouting approach, or instead if they do dabble a little in free agency for once. In terms of other player moves though, there isn't much else to officially report, outside of the fact that Paris have seemingly released a French trio of Soon, Bembes and Nico, with all three posting tweets that they are now free agents. In tomorrow's video, where I'll be focusing specifically on the Paris Eternal, I'll talk about these releases in greater detail, but for now what I will say is that at this point it's not even a case of the Eternal looking to focus on a French squad in 2021. It's clear that they're going full budget, and to achieve this they need to get out of the contracts of their current French cohort, despite their quality and fan appeal. So sorry Paris fans, even though you still have Exi and FD God, I fear it's only a matter of time before they leave in trades themselves. As for the remaining official changes, most have been taking place at a staff level amongst a couple of the teams. Firstly with the Toronto Defiant parting ways with their interim GM, Allbless. I can't say this decision is that surprising, as it now means that KDG has likely been given full control of the running and construction of the Toronto roster moving forward, which does make a lot of sense considering his past success. As for Allbless, I can certainly sympathise with what he's had to deal with over the past few months, being promoted to an emergency GM position after being an assistant coach. Hopefully it's an experience that can help him moving forward as he now looks for a new opportunity. Outside of a Defiant, for Seoul Dynasty the other team have been making some adjustments to their coaching staff ahead of 2021. Bon Yuri has been promoted to an assistant coach as he now works alongside a returning MMA and Changun, while Seoul has also said farewell to Wizard Yong. Nothing really unexpected here, with the Dynasty continuing to promote promising coaching talents from the Gen G fold, with Bon Yuri now the latest after MMA to see a promotion within the organisation. Given that Seoul reached the Grand Finals in 2020, I didn't expect them to blow up their coaching staff, but there are some important points I think have to be made. The biggest issue for the Dynasty last season was consistency, and in many ways a lot of that comes down to preparation and coaching philosophy. I hope they're able to push on from 2020 and really establish a consistent level of quality performances that we know the players are capable of. However, I'm still a little concerned given Changun's track record, and if Seoul remain inconsistent next season, Wizard Yong's release will have meant little, and the blame will lie very much at Changun's feet. In terms of the official announcements, this is all I've got as of me making this video, but now it's time for me to do a rumour roundup, discussing all the rumours and speculation that have been swirling around since my last video on this topic. Again, I will stress that everything I'll be mentioning from this point on is just rumour and speculation right now. None of these moves or trades have been officially confirmed by any of the teams, and it's crucially important to remember that it's definitely possible they could end up falling through or just being wrong. That said, the first rumour going around, and in my opinion the biggest, comes from Halo, who has heard from his sources that the Dallas Fuel are completing a trade for the Shanghai Dragons main tank Fearless. Just when you think this off-season couldn't get any crazier, Dallas come out and look to add one of the comeback players of last season to their Dallas Eternal and Element Mystic core. On paper, were this to happen, I think the Fuel would have conducted a brilliant bit of business, picking up one of the best main tanks from last season to add to their ever more exciting lineup. I mean, a partnership of Fearless and Hanbin on paper just sounds amazing after their fantastic showings last year. I know I've said this before, but if this does come true, Dallas certainly now have to be considered a serious contender in 2021, and it just makes you wonder what more Hastro plans to do with this roster ahead of next season, with a big component still missing at main support. Flipping focus though, if this does happen, I have to say that I'm very surprised by the thought process of the Shanghai Dragons. Fearless has just had an inspirational rebound year at the Overwatch League level, where on Winston especially, he was simply unmatched in the APAC region. Another rumour is suggesting that Coach Moon wants to reunite with the Foreign and Mayhem's main tank, Fate, which would make for an interesting replacement, with Moon potentially happy to make the swap, while Stan 1 is still available as an alternative option. If we just go on their performance last year though, I personally would rate Fearless as the stronger of the two options, and unless Moon can inspire Fate to return to his 2018 form, or instead just feels that Fearless was elevated in Shanghai's 2020 lineup, then I fear these are a couple of moves that may end up actually weakening a Dragon side that should really be looking to push on and win the championship next year. Elsewhere, Halo is reporting that the Atlanta Reign have signed O2 Blast DPS player Pelican, which I think would be a very nice addition to a strange Atlanta outfit. Pelican has a ton of potential and could really shine on the Overwatch League stage after a really impressive year in contenders with O2 Blast. And in theory, a DPS duo of him and Edison sounds a little nutty. I'd be looking forward to see how this move pans out if it does go ahead, but I would urge the Reign fans a bit of caution, as this time last year we also thought an Edison Erster partnership would absolutely slap, and we all saw how that turned out. Lastly, there's a suggestion from Ready Set Pwn that Agilities could be heading to the west coast of Canada to join the Vancouver Titans. Now, unlike Halo, I can't say how accurate these guys are, but it is a move on paper that makes a lot of sense. To be frank, Vancouver need a lot more quality and improvement on what they have right now, and in Agilities they'd be able to pick up a very experienced player who also brings plenty of local fan favourite support. So if this deal does come through, I think it could work out very nicely for the Titans, whilst Agilities himself could look for a rebound year after a slightly disappointing season with Toronto last time out. For now though, that's everything I have. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be posting a discussion video on the Paris Eternal. So what do you think of these signings and potential moves? Let me know down in the comments below. If you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, or follow me on Twitter or my Discord. Until next time though, I want to say a big thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.